The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Famous. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
Hey, buddy. Hey, thank you so much for your time. This is very special because this goes years back, and it's kind of prolific while we're talking, Matt.
Was it 4 years ago, something like that, at ESPN Radio in San Diego?
And you got a good memory. I want to say 2016. Yeah, 4 years ago.
Something like that. Yeah. It's crazy. It's been that long. Like now, it doesn't even. I think ESPN Business doesn't even broadcast on that station anymore. That's how long it's been.
Absolutely.
All right.
I'm kind of outdoors today only because I'm literally, man, I'm going nuts inside. So I need to either get back into the office or do something different because I'm really having a hard time. But this is all about you.
Are you meaning to mute yourself?
Sign in the background. Everybody's kind of out and about. I'm really happy. But so Matt, really, what this broadcast is about you because you're one of the catalysts of why I'm doing my channel on YouTube, and I'm also now exploring the podcast world, which it is a different world. They're all kind of on the same freeway, but they are different. So you're the expert, and that's why I wanted you on the show, is because to teach the audience, just to help the audience understand and also entertain the audience on why podcast is so important. It is part of my business model, Matt. I do have my own podcast channel up on Anchor, which goes to Spotify and all the rest of them. What advice do you have for aspiring podcasters, Matt?
Okay. Well, first of all, who's the audience that we're talking to, and kind of what level are they at?
I'm catering to a YouTube audience, and I'm basing my theme on wealth, health, and happiness.
Okay. And I know we're recording, so if we're ready to hit the ground rolling, we will.
You're in charge. This is your show.
Okay. All right. So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that it's not necessarily about podcasting. I have no allegiance to podcasting per se. I started out in live video on YouTube, and then I was one of the first ones to be on Facebook Live when one of the very first integrations came out before you could even broadcast with Zoom or Blue Jeans on Facebook. So I've always been into the live video part, and I think that's actually really the future. So the future is to have a show,
right,
recorded or broadcast live on video, and then podcasting is just one of the ways that people can get the content if they prefer to listen on the go, or they want to grab it at the gym or whatever. But it's so powerful, the connection that you get from what we're doing here, being able to see each other and the audience to see us having a real conversation, that to me, that's the best answer, is to start with that as your central thing. And then maybe at some point in the near future, you don't have to do it right away, but get comfortable doing something on video and then turn that into a podcast, because that's actually technically fairly easy.
Right. It's giving you a voice, and you are right, because that's how I started, Matt. I love the concept. I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan, huge fan of Joe Rogan. I love his podcasts. And then he has a huge online presence as well on YouTube. And I think he almost does better on his YouTube channel than he does on his podcast. However, they're both amazing avenues of streaming revenue for him.
Yeah, I honestly really don't know. I would be surprised to learn if YouTube did as well as the podcast, because I think the podcast gets probably millions of downloads, and from what it looks like, the YouTube clips kind of balance out between his actual full episodes, and then he's got his JRE clips, which is going to stay on YouTube even after he moves away. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that's fairly easy to do, is you do a show and then you do it as a podcast, and then somebody grabs 5-10 minute clips of the best parts and puts them up on YouTube, because that's actually more of what people will consume on YouTube rather than your full episode.
You kind of nailed it, Matt. I'm speaking to the that's he's got these little teaser trailers, which he does. Yeah. You can watch the full episode, but you are right. He has a lot of teasers out there. And so once I started doing my research, like, okay, I need to take this serious because I've got the time now, Matt.
Right.
That was the thing. I had the time. I'm at home. I'm quarantined, at least for the next 4 weeks. I know that much.
Yeah, apparently. Well, if Garcetti has his way, it'll be a lot longer than that. But longer. Yeah, you may not be leaving your house in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. So uh, I want to be careful with my finances because there's something happening in the economy. It is going to crash, and I knew that.
Yeah.
So I need to hold back on spending. So what can I do that's going to cost me a little bit of money, but a lot of effort?
Mm-hmm.
And from doing my research, it was YouTube channel was the best return on my investment. And so literally 2 months ago, it was actually about 6 weeks ago, I hit it hard, Matt.
Yeah.
Again, but now I need an audience, right? So it's it's legends like you. I call people legends. Everybody has a story to tell. Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
They've had some kind of adventure, or they've had something, a crack in the universe that they want to share. So let me start interviewing them because that's amazing content.
Mm-hmm.
Just like what the Ellen DeGeneres and the Joe Rogans are doing, I can do it on a beginning scale.
Right.
Except you're elevated because you're very prolific in this field.
Oh,
So,
I appreciate that. Thank you. So here's the tricky thing about YouTube. So there's two ways that things grow on YouTube, which is number one, word of mouth and people sharing links directly to a video. And number two is people finding your stuff because they're searching and they're finding it by the way that your videos are titled and tagged. And so you kind of have to go all in. It's hard to do both. You kind of got to go all in on one of those two. So if you're going to share stories, for example, or you're going to feature people that don't have big enough names to where people are looking for them, you really got to lean into asking people to share it and then making it easy for people to share the links to the individual videos and kind of like pass them around because you're not going to get a lot of favors from people stumbling across the videos through search, right? And then there's the other direction you can go, which is to go and create, like, look at what's being searched in YouTube and create videos specifically for that and try to match up the titles of your videos to the searches that people are looking for.
Okay, man.
You know?
You give me all my trade secrets. Literally, this should be like a whole coaching master session by itself. Which you are a coach, by the way, right? You're a coach. Am I correct? You coach people.
Only in the sense that I coach my clients in my capacity as the founder of the agency. I don't do private coaching and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Well, I do want to put Master's details in the description box below only because he's a catalyst in getting you launched in many ways, right, man? I mean, even when we met back on the ESPN show, I remember you reaching out to me saying, hey, Kevin, when you start your podcast, hey, Kevin, when you do this luxury channel, you were actually part of that motivation. And of course, it died off because I wasn't doing anything for a while. So, now that I'm back into the game and now that I've realized that it's not really a necessity. It's actually a lot of fun. I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing, Matt. This is
good.
A great opportunity for me to build my brand as well. Mm-hmm. There's many methods that I'm actually advancing on from having my own channel. And now I'm turning into the podcast world. I do have my own channel, Matt. I've maybe had 0 downloads to 3 downloads. At least it's something, but it's a start compared to having nothing at all. Mm-hmm. And of course it goes... That's a whole nother different world of understanding, but it does bridge over my understanding. My YouTube channel does bridge over into my podcast channel, and I'm going to shoot that crow in the background there, if you don't mind. Well,
is that what that is? That's a crow.
Yeah. Bloody hell!
Well, I'm going to get a contact high by the end because there's somebody smoking pot like 20 yards away from my window or something. So you've got a crow, I've got pot
that's
smokers.
Awesome.
We both know. Yeah, we're just basically that's life in California.
I need some of that because I'm so stressed out. I'm a very high impact kind of person. I need contact sports. I need to be in front of people. So, and being at home, my wife's incredible, Matt, and my 4 kids are amazing. It's just tough for me because I need to get out. Yes. I'm not one to. I don't have a man cave. I don't hang out in my cave. And it doesn't matter if I do, my kids will come in there anyway. There's no boundaries or borders to them. There's everything. I literally, if I didn't hold them back right now, they'd be in my lap wanting to talk to you and wouldn't have this conversation. Matt, let's talk about podcasts because I know a lot about the YouTube world, but I want you on the show because I want you to educate us and fulfill our minds with why podcast is so important. If besides you being the go-to person, do you have a website or some kind of a book that guides us along this process? Because everything has a roadmap. Everything has a blueprint. It's a science. What do you have, Matt? Okay.
So easiest place is the Microfamous book, which you can get. You can actually get that for free and I'll ship it to you. If you cover the shipping, I'll pay for the book. So that's at microfamousbook.com. And then if you actually want to launch a podcast just straight up, then we can do, that's what our agency does. So that's at pursuingresults.com.
Matt, where do I go? Where do I go to find your book?
Microfamousbook.com.
Love it. Oops. So this is where you guys can go and get Matt's book.
Yeah, just slap.com at the end of there or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that. Thanks, man.
Or there's the Amazon link. Okay, cool. Yeah, Lisa pulls up the right book. Okay. So that is the book. You can get it on Amazon as well if you like, especially if you want the Kindle version. So that's always a good option. But anyway, yeah. So let's talk. So talking about podcasting. So like, why is it important? Why is it a route that people should consider right now?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way that I would look at it is that if you want to sell something, especially if you want to sell a service, you can try to put it in front of them when they're doing other stuff, Facebook, Instagram ads, Google Pay, stuff like that. Like you can try to shove information in front of them when they're not looking for it, but it's a lot better to go where they're looking for answers. And right now in the business world, at least, there's basically two places where people go to look for solutions to their problems. And that's they listen to business podcasts and they look at stuff on YouTube. Wow. So, right. So if you can hit both of those channels with one show, all the better. But let's talk about like focus on podcasting. So podcasting is like one of the primary places where entrepreneurs and business owners are going and listening to other entrepreneurs and business owners talk about what they're doing to grow their business. And you can get so micro specific on what type of business you want to grow, because there's probably a podcast that caters to that. And then even within those niches, there's still the few and the many. There's the mainstream and the affluent. There's still, even with no matter how small the niche is, the niche still breaks down into two different segments even within that. So there's still plenty of room for new podcasts. Just because there's 900,000 out there, there's like 150 million blogs. So to me, the sky is the limit still for podcasting. And the people that are going to win are going to be the people that don't try to be everything to everyone. They figure out what niche they're in so that people can instantly tell if that podcast is right for them, and they'll give it a chance. So the more specific and the more focused you are, and the smaller the group of people you try to turn into super fans, it's the easier it is, rather than trying to go to the masses. So that was the genesis of the idea for the book. And it just came from my own personal experience running two different podcasts in the same super niche industry, having an interest in the coaching business behind each one of them all at the same time. And so it was like this accidental split test. So watching the results that came from running two different shows with two different sets of audiences in the same niche is what caused that light bulb to go on. And I realized it was actually the more focused niche podcast with the smaller audience that was way easier to monetize, which runs completely counter to all the advice that we're given.
Right, precisely, because I came from Hollywood, Matt. Content is king. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is it's a funnel process. You've got to be more niche orientated, because when I think content, I'm thinking like a massive amount of library. Just upload audio to your podcast, upload content. It doesn't matter. Somehow you'll find your niche. So you're saying no, be a little bit more hyper focused, right? Mm-hmm.
Hyper focused. Yeah, the days of the Gary V strategy working, I think, are past us, right? Okay. So if you go back, 5-7 years or whatever, when Gary V was getting started and Simon Sinek was getting started around the same time, those guys had two wildly different approaches. So you had Simon Sinek, who comes out with an idea that's so compelling and powerful and unique that people shared it. Like people were going, hey, you've got to listen to this guy's TED Talk. You've got to listen to this guy. You got to buy his book, Start With Why. Simon Sinek never grew a huge social media audience. He got big on TED Talks and stuff like that because his ideas were really powerful. Then Gary V does the exact opposite.
Well, his book was impressive, and then elevated him to other channels or other avenues to get in.
Exactly. But he didn't blast away with volume, right? He wasn't shouting the loudest or shouting the most on social media. Gary V is the one that really is the figurehead for that approach, which is like, I'm going to flood the airwaves. I'm going to flood the market with content. I've got 19 people on my content team to help me hit every single social network, right? Like Gary V's got that down. The problem is that doesn't work for the average person anymore. I would suspect, and I've heard this, confirmed by other people, and people are starting to talk about it more publicly, that even the reason that it still works for Gary V is because by now he spends so much on the paid content that they basically kind of let him slide on the organic stuff, and they show his stuff to more people than they would if he were just getting started today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like the
Yeah.
Grant Cardone philosophy: be omnipresent.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone,
Yeah.
he's all about their 10x factor.
Yes, and I love that book, but like what he did on social media does not apply anymore. I think at one point he had a tweet going out every 7 minutes or something like that. The days of that building an audience, it's just not here anymore. So to me, it's really hard to create. It's really hard to do what Simon Sinek did, which is to come up with an idea or a concept that's really unique and powerful to a huge group of people. Does that make sense? Right. That's the Tony Robbins approach. Yeah. It's really, really hard because you got to be tapped into the spirit of the times. It's really no different than writing a massively hit song. It's like your first song you write isn't going to be a hit. Maybe the 100th, maybe never. So the idea that you're going to create an idea that goes absolutely mainstream is about the same odds of writing a hit song. It's virtually the same thing. But if you have a very narrow, focused audience of people that have money to buy what you're selling, it's actually a lot easier to come up with an idea that speaks very deeply to them, right?
But okay,
So
yeah.
So if you only need 5 or 10,000 people,
and I don't like what you're saying, Matt.
I know. This is the rub. I 100% know what you mean.
I want that exponential growth. I want that vertical growth, and I want it now. And one thing I'm realizing about being on my channel is they want consistency, and they want like at least more than 10 minutes of time frame, and they want content. So,
yeah.
You're saying, okay, you need to get a little more focused and a little bit more sexier with your approach than just blasting the airwaves, right?
Yes. I don't know if I'd use the word sexier. Compelling. It has to compel people to get off the couch. If the content that we create, number one, it has to compel them to consume it. They have to actually consume it for themselves. Okay. But then it has to really be spreadable. It has to go a step beyond that. And we have to create content that's good enough that when people are done consuming it for themselves, they say inside, I've got to share this. And that's the thing that's toughest to do.
Yeah,
but it's the thing that's the worth. What's that?
What's that secret sauce, Matt?
Well, the secret sauce is to really get clear on who you're speaking to so that you can get more specific in what you're saying and the content that you're delivering. And I'll give you an example. So in the real estate space, I co-hosted the podcast, the Team Building Podcast, which is all for team leaders, which you're familiar with. Now, the reason that was so much more easier to monetize in the real estate space than a bunch of other podcasts, including guys like Pat Hyben and Toby Salgado, like those guys that have tried a lot of things to monetize their mainstream audience in real estate. Team Building Podcast built a multi-six-figure coaching consulting business in around 2 years with zero social media presence and a very tiny email list. The reason that it did that is because the things that me and Jeff were talking about on that show were problems that only a very, very specific, small, focused audience had, but we dealt with them, and Jeff had amazing content, really, really great tactical content that solved those problems that a very small market had. So when they listened to that, they were finding content on the Team Building Podcast that they couldn't find on any other real estate show, or they were listening to other real estate shows and they were combing through 5 and 10 interviews to get one that really spoke to them. Well, but what people don't understand is that's where the opportunity is. So think about Joe Rogan, for an example. Joe Rogan interviews a many different types of people.
Yeah. Right.
So how many thousands of podcasts have come along since Joe Rogan came out that attempt to do the same thing? But here's the thing.
I'm part of the wave. I'm part of that wave. You know, I'm
right, yeah, I was part of that wave too.
Yeah.
But what I figured out along the way was that if you think about like Joe Rogan, if you just pulled out 10 of his episodes at random, not a single one of them come from the same industry. They have virtually nothing in common other than they're just super interesting people.
Got it. Okay.
Right. But see, there's parts of Joe Rogan's audience where they only care about every 10th episode. So the question is, what are those episodes? Like maybe there's a segment of Joe Rogan's audience that only care about interviews he's done with astrophysicists. That's an opportunity for a new podcast. Right. So if you're looking at the niche that you're in, you want to look at the content that's out there and you go, what audience, who do I want to serve? And what are they not getting from other places? when they're listening to other podcasts and they're sifting through all the episodes and they're only listening to like every 5 or 10 videos or every 5 or 10 podcast episodes, what are they looking for that they're not getting? And maybe I can be the one that delivers that to them.
So Matt, I have a question for you, and I want to generalize as well. It's actually what I want to do, and I'm also thinking for myself as I ask this question. Mm-hmm. I want to create some kind of an avenue to tell my story, whether I'm a mechanic or a construction worker or whatever, and I'm a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. How do I go about creating it? How do I go about discovering that niche for me as an individual? And I'm thinking for myself, of course, but I'm also thinking for the audience. If they're watching this right now, Matt, mm-hmm. and you've got all this great content, it's all about self-discovery. I want to be like Joe Rogan. I want to be like Tim Ferriss. I want to be like Matt Johnson. But I want it to be Kevin Du Toit. I want to be the next Kevin Du Toit. Yeah. Matt, give me some insight. How do I do that? From all the people you've interviewed, is there a formula or an equation, or is it just a journey?
Well, I think Tim Ferriss said it best. I was watching one of his videos on YouTube, ironically, a couple of days ago. And he said, if you want to start something that ends up being popular, he said, don't focus on the end result. Find the 1,000 true fans first and make something that they will flip out over and most of everyone else won't care about. So if you go after a mainstream audience right away, you end up creating something that most people, it's just not interesting enough to most people. But if you create something that only a few will really, really, really love, so then you focus on making those first 1,000 people extraordinarily happy. So it's those 1,000 people that become your evangelists, and they go out and they're the ones that find the mainstream. You don't find the mainstream. Wow. Your first 1,000 fans are the ones that go find the mainstream. And I realized that I had accidentally stumbled across that with certain podcasts that I ran. Yeah. That's the way Real Estate Uncensored took off. It's the way the Team Building podcast took off. We were quirky. We were authentic. In one case in Real Estate Uncensored, like we cussed in our podcast, God forbid. I'm like, I'm a pastor's kid.
Don't do the F-bomb, man.
I know. How I'm a pastor's kid that ended up running an uncensored podcast, but it worked for us, right? And we got a lot of pushback. We got an insane level of pushback when we did that.
Why? We're human beings, Matt. This is a natural world. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Well, apparently that's what we should have been on the podcast, because we got a lot of pushback on just the fact that it was an uncensored podcast, and of course most of it was my co-host. Yeah. But yeah, like we got a lot of pushback on it, and we kept going. We didn't allow that to deter us, and sure enough, we found a fan base that loved us so much that they shared us with their friends, and that's how the podcast grew. And then we never really focused on like trying to reach a mainstream audience. So I think the answer is focus on making a few people really wildly happy and entertained with your content, and focus on giving them something that they're willing to share with other people. But when it comes, I want to take a step back though, because you talk about like sharing your story. Right. There's a very intensely personal part of that. So there's a practical answer and there's a deeply personal answer, which is at some point, if you want to share your story and you want to evangelize people and bring people into your world, right? At some point, you have to come to terms with the fact that you're not going to resonate with everybody, and you just have to go out there and tell the story and see who comes.
I love that. Right. So I have a brother who has an organic business up in Oregon, and he's doing extremely well. I mean, he's just blowing up during this pandemic, Matt. And that was the same thing. It was a very organic process. He didn't buy a lot of subscriptions. He didn't buy a lot of fan base. He just sold nice little product on his website. He had a good client base. He was doing well enough to take care of him and his family. He was making a good 6 figures a year, but it just wasn't enough. And now all of a sudden he's just kind of hit the stratosphere because of his hand sanitizer and his immune booster and so forth. Amen. More power to him. So what you're saying is this has to be an organic process. I can't force or push because I know during building my channel, I have to be very careful in things I do, because it won't affect me now. It affects me in the long term. For instance, Matt, I could buy 1 million views today for $10. No problem. I can have 1 million views. However, me wanting to go legitimate, I'm just sharing this with you because I've done the research. I want to get there fast and quick. How do I do it? Well, buy subscriptions, buy views. It doesn't work that way, because I want to become legitimate. Yeah, exactly. I want to become legitimate. So When I do start getting monetized by the YouTube universe, they're not stupid. They know what I've done, what I haven't done. They can see from the back end, from their core analytics, their core search, what I've actually accomplished and done, so that it affects me long term. Now, a lot of people do it. Hey, more power to them. I want to do this in a way that I benefit long term, not short term. Yes, I've got grand ambitions and high motivations, and I'm super ambitious. Again, I intend, I'm not perfect, Matt. I do intend to do the right thing. What I hear you saying, though, which I do believe is true, is it's got to be organic. You've just got to kind of go out there, feel the mood, build the audience, and entertain. And sooner or later, you'll grab a select few, and then from there, it becomes exponential.
Yeah, and again, going back to the analogy of a band. So how do you write a hit song? Well, you write more songs. And every song that you write, you put time and attention and love and care into that song. But once that song is written, it's done. Whether people respond to it and it becomes a hit song is out of your control. All you can control is a couple of things. How much care did you put into the creation of the song? And how many songs did you produce? So you got to have the number of you got to produce more songs. Like most people that write hit songs, they are song writers. It flows out of them because they do it every day. Yeah. Now that's not to say you have to produce content every day. Here's what I mean by that, and here's that applies to this new world we're living in, where more content isn't the answer. So it's like, well, if you're going to put more work into creating content, but more content isn't the answer, well, where does the more work go? Here's where it goes. Talking to your audience so that you understand the conversation going on inside their head, and creating content that speaks really, really deeply to solving those problems that they're having and answering the questions that they're asking themselves right now. So the easiest thing
that was deep.
I know it's
that was deep. and I'm an intellectual, and I do say it because I am an intellectual. Just say that again, Matt, only because that was deep.
So
the second portion.
Talking with your audience enough to know what is the conversation that's going on in their heads, what questions are they asking themselves, and what problems do they have right now that they're asking. And then spending more time to create content that speaks really deeply to those things, those problems, those questions that they're asking. So think about why I did a live video about this a couple of days ago on my Facebook profile for anybody that's interested, but I did a video about like why Tim Ferriss is a genius, why he's a content genius. How did Tim Ferriss build this brand? Why is he so smart?
I saw it. It's actually just over 9 minutes long. I'm paying attention to all the details. I saw that video, and that's why I contacted you. I'm like, why am I not contacting Matt Johnson for?
It was that video.
That video was amazing. I mean, that little portion right there, it's his own channel within itself. You know, if I share that, can I share that after this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Grab it and throw it up on your Facebook profile. Basically the quick overview is that he figured out how to deliver really, really unique, practical information for problems that lots and lots and lots and lots of people have. And examples like, how do you negotiate a raise? How do you get a better job? How do you get into a better college? Right? These are problems that millions of people have. And he had a super unique perspective on it. And he gave people a very unique solution to very big common problems. So if you want like success in the business world in content, that's the recipe to do it. Now that's hard, right? It's a lot easier to come up with unique solutions for very specific problems. Like, how does a real estate team boost their online lead generation conversion numbers from 2.5% to 3%? Right? That is a very specific problem that a very small portion of the audience has, but they will pay thousands of dollars for that solution.
They will, absolutely. And it sounds like a small question, but it actually isn't. I mean, that half a point, that half a percent.
That half a point could be hundreds of thousands of gross commissions a year, right? Absolutely. So if you find those problems are a lot easier to deliver unique content on.
Got it.
Finding unique content that solves problems that tens of millions of people have, like how do I get a better job? How do I decide what business to start? That's really hard to do because there's no shortage of opinions on those problems.
Got it. Matt, I could spend all day with you. I'm having a hard time looking at time. I'm like, oh man, I could spend all day with you. Matt, maybe I'd like to talk to you some more. because you've got so much to offer. You're such a unique individual. You've come from a diverse background. I know you well. I've spent time with you. We've had conversations before. You've inspired me. You still inspire me. I don't want to say I have to end. I've got to end here. But what I do want to say is, can I have you back, Matt? You're so phenomenal. And maybe we can talk about that afterwards. And also, before we leave, is there one thing that you can leave the audience with that gives them that special spark to do what they've never done before? And I'm talking maybe it's a mindset thing, or it's an action thing, or it's an activity thing.
Yes. There's a chapter in the book where I summed up what is the difference between people that become micro-famous and those that don't. And it's the people who choose tomorrow over today. The people that I admire the most,
okay,
they attempt to solve problems once and for all, right? So they make choices today that actually make tomorrow easier, whether that choice is to build a system, save an email as a template, right? Turn something into a spreadsheet, create a piece of content that will live on forever. Whatever it is, that their whole mindset is always more focused on tomorrow than just getting through today. So if there's one like instant mindset shift that people can do, like get into action and start implementing right away, is to start thinking about, how does what I'm doing right now, how does that make tomorrow easier?
Just one thing. Absolutely. It's just that one thing. Matt, thank you for your time. You're a remarkable human being. I want to put all your contact details in the description box below. Hey guys, please subscribe to my channel. Click that like button, smash it, actually, crush it, and hit the bell so you get notifications when I post everything live. Absolutely. Matt, I would actually like to do another podcast, maybe early next week, on your book. I think you need to share more with us. I think
Awesome.
this micro-famous, because we are in a micro-famous environment, and I think you hit the nail on there. I know you hit the nail on the head with that title, and I love it. So could we do that next week?
Yeah, sounds like fun.
I love it. Okay. Hey guys, Matt Johnson. Guys, this guy is the guru of social media when it comes to launching a podcast. What I mean is, get your channel going, speak to Matt, reach out to Matt. He's on Facebook, and he'll help you understand the science behind launching your own podcast. Mr. Matt Johnson, you're amazing, you're wonderful. Time out, my friend. Thank you very much for your time. You're awesome. I'll see you and speak with you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
Cheers, Matt.